The crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over white tablecloths at Oriole, Manhattan's exclusive restaurant where the elite dined and deals were made in hushed tones. Claire Bennett moved efficiently between tables, her waitress uniform a stark contrast to the designer clothes surrounding her, her soft footsteps barely audible against the gentle murmur of conversation. Behind her shy demeanor and quiet efficiency lay a secret even she didn't fully understand, an inexplicable gift for languages that had been her sanctuary since childhood. Tonight, that gift would change her life forever. When Table 7 requested her specifically, the hostess's puzzled glance following her as she made her way across the dining room. The man sitting alone exuded power in his tailored Italian suit, his dark eyes following her movements with unsettling intensity. As she approached, he revealed a document written in what appeared to be an ancient Italian dialect. Watching her face with calculated interest, his manicured fingers tapping lightly against the aged parchment. "Can you read this?" he asked, voice smooth as aged whiskey, sliding the yellowed parchment across the table. "I've heard you're something of a linguistic prodigy hiding in plain sight, a rare talent in this city of mundane ambitions." Claire's heart hammered against her ribs as her eyes scanned the document, the words mysteriously rearranging themselves into meaning within her mind. Without thinking, she began to translate the first lines aloud, the ancient phrases flowing from her lips as naturally as her native English. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength, silencing her instantly. "Not here," he whispered, eyes suddenly alive with a dangerous mixture of surprise and intrigue, the restaurant around them suddenly feeling too exposed. "Translate this document in its entirety, and $5 million is yours," he smirked, releasing her wrist and sliding a business card across the table. "Refuse, and you'll never know why you can understand a dialect dead for centuries, or why your grandmother fled Italy with you 20 years ago." The restaurant seemed to fade around her as Claire stared at the elaborate crest on his card. Franco Valenti, CEO of Valenti Investments. The name triggered a distant memory, a whispered warning from her grandmother years ago, something about falcons and bloodlines that had made no sense to her young mind. "How do you know about my ability?" Claire asked, fighting to keep her voice steady as she tucked the card into her pocket. "I've never told anyone about this, not even my closest friends." His smile never reached his eyes as he stood, towering over her. "Your grandmother didn't tell you everything, did she? You have until tomorrow night to decide, but remember, others are looking for someone with your particular talents, and they won't offer money first." The document contained words that felt familiar, yet forbidden, like a childhood song she'd been warned never to sing. Claire knew accepting meant stepping into a world she couldn't escape from, but refusing meant losing the answers she'd always sought about her fractured past and the nightmares that still plagued her. A memory surfaced, her grandmother frantically burning papers with similar script when Claire was just 7 years old. The same night they'd fled Italy for America, changing their names and never looking back, her small suitcase packed with only essentials and a single antique jewelry box. As Franco walked away, her manager rushed over, eyes wide with fear. "Do you have any idea who that man is? The Valenti family doesn't just run businesses. They run half the criminal enterprises in New York, and anyone who gets involved with them never truly escapes." Claire's apartment felt smaller that night, the walls closing in as she examined the ancient text under lamplight. The document contained family names, locations, and figures, clearly some kind of ledger that held dangerous significance, names that seemed to whisper warnings as she traced them with trembling fingers. Morning light streamed through Claire's window as she awoke, her decision made after a night of restless dreams filled with fragments of her childhood in Italy. The translation had flowed from her pen effortlessly, as if the words had always lived inside her, awakening memories she hadn't known she possessed. She called the number on Franco's card, her voice steadier than she expected. "I've translated your document, Mr. Valenti, but I want answers about my family in exchange for the complete translation, not just money." Franco's sleek black Maserati waited outside her modest apartment building, his driver opening the door without a word. The contrast between her simple life and his world of luxury couldn't have been more stark, yet something about the leather interior felt hauntingly familiar to her. "My grandmother raised me alone after my parents died," Claire said as they drove through Manhattan's crowded streets. "She never spoke of our past in Italy, only that we had to leave everything behind to stay alive." Franco studied her with newfound interest, noting the determined set of her jaw. "Your grandmother was Bianca Savona before she changed her name to protect you both, the last surviving member of a once powerful family that controlled something far more valuable than money." The revelation struck Claire like a physical blow, her hands tightening around the translated document. Savona? The name means nothing to me. Why would she hide this from me my entire life, when she knew I had this strange ability? Because the Savona family controlled the translation and movement of sensitive information between rival organizations for generations, Franco explained. Your linguistic gift isn't coincidence. It's inheritance, passed down through the women in your bloodline for centuries. The car stopped before an imposing high-rise bearing the Valenti name, its glass facade reflecting the cloudless sky. Your translation skills are needed for more than just this document, Franco revealed as they entered the private elevator, his security team forming a protective barrier around them. His penthouse office overlooked Central Park, the city spread before them like a concrete kingdom. The 5 million is just the beginning, he said, unlocking a hidden wall safe. What I'm offering is your rightful place in our world, and protection from those who would exploit your abilities. Inside the safe lay a collection of ancient ledgers, similar to the document she'd translated. These contained secrets that could shift power across 5 families, Franco explained. Only someone with Savona blood can decipher them completely, which is why your grandmother was so valuable to my father. Claire felt the weight of unseen eyes watching her every move as security personnel positioned themselves discreetly around the room. And if I refuse to continue translating after this first document, what happens then? Then you'll never know why 3 different families have been searching for you since your grandmother's death last year, Franco replied, his words sending ice through her veins. Or why someone ransacked her apartment looking for these exact ledgers the night after her funeral. Her grandmother's death had been ruled natural causes, a peaceful passing in her sleep. You're saying she was murdered? Claire whispered, grief and rage building inside her chest, as pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known existed began falling into place. Franco's expression softened momentarily, revealing a glimpse of humanity beneath his calculated exterior. I'm saying nothing in our world happens without purpose, and your grandmother protected you until her last breath, just as my father protected her when they were young. That night, Claire returned to her apartment with the first payment, a briefcase containing more money than she'd ever seen, and questions multiplying in her mind. She pushed aside her worn sofa, revealing the loose floorboard where she'd hidden her grandmother's keepsakes after the break-in she'd dismissed as a random burglary. The ornate jewelry box she'd inherited felt suddenly significant as she traced the intricate carvings with trembling fingers. The pattern matched perfectly with the crest on Franco's business card, not identical, but clearly related, the swooping lines forming what she now recognized as stylized wings of a falcon. Inside lay items she'd examined 100 times before, but never understood. A tarnished key, photographs of strangers, and a golden medallion bearing an inscription in the same ancient dialect. The Guardian keeps faith with blood alone, it read in her mind, the words forming as naturally as English. A knock at her door startled her from her discoveries, sharp, authoritative, and unexpected at this late hour. Through the peephole, she saw a tall man with watchful eyes and the unmistakable bulge of a shoulder holster beneath his jacket, his stance alert yet non-threatening. Ms. Bennett, I'm Max Hunter, head of security for Mr. Valenti, he announced when she cautiously opened the door. There's been a development. Someone knows you've begun translating the ledgers, and you're no longer safe here. He moved through her apartment with professional efficiency, checking windows and sightlines. Pack what you can't live without. You're moving to a secure location tonight, he instructed, his tone leaving no room for argument, though his eyes softened when they fell on the photograph of her grandmother. As Claire hurriedly gathered her belongings, Max noticed the open jewelry box. Where did you get that? He demanded, suddenly alert, his hand moving instinctively toward his concealed weapon, body tensing as if preparing for an unseen threat. It was my grandmother's, she explained, protective of her only inheritance. I've had it since she died. Why does it matter to you? Or have anything to do with these ledgers? Max's expression shifted between recognition and wariness. Because that box belongs to the Savona family archives that disappeared 30 years ago, and there are people who would kill to possess it. The Barone family has been searching for it since before you were born. As they left through the service entrance, Claire caught sight of an unmarked car across the street, its occupants watching her building with predatory focus. Max guided her to a different vehicle, his body language tense and vigilant, one hand always near his weapon. The safe house was a luxury apartment in a building with private security and no connection to the Valenti family. Your new identity paperwork will arrive tomorrow, Max informed her, handing her a new phone. "Use this to contact only me or Mr. Valenti if anything seems suspicious." Alone in the impersonal space that would now be her home, Claire carefully unpacked the medallion, holding it under the light. The inscription continued on the reverse side with words that sent chills through her body. "The last Savona holds the key to war or peace among the 5 houses." As dawn broke over the city, Claire made a decision. She would translate the ledgers, not for Franco or the money, but to uncover the truth about her family and the legacy that had been kept from her for 27 years. A legacy written in both blood and ancient dialect. The first week in the safe house passed in a blur of ancient text and growing revelations as Claire immersed herself in the ledgers. Each translation revealed more about the 5 powerful families that had controlled New York's underground for generations, their businesses interwoven with legitimate enterprises like invisible threads. Franco visited daily, his interest clearly extending beyond the translations as he brought rare books on ancient dialects and stories of her grandmother's legendary skills. "Your grandmother could read intentions as easily as languages," he explained one evening, which is why the Savona women were both treasured and feared. The ledgers contained more than just business transactions. They held secrets, blackmail material, and evidence of betrayals spanning decades. Claire discovered her own birth recorded in one entry, alongside a cryptic note. "The bloodline continues, protected by oath." As Claire delved deeper into the translations, she discovered disturbing connections between the Valenti and Savona families. Her grandmother had been engaged to Franco's father before fleeing Italy, breaking an alliance that had kept peace between rival factions for generations. Max became a constant, reassuring presence, teaching Claire to defend herself and recognize potential threats. "In this world, knowledge is both weapon and shield," he told her during their training sessions, his hands gently correcting her stance as she learned to handle a firearm. The 5th ledger contained detailed information about the Barone family, headed by the ruthless Victor Barone, whose signature appeared repeatedly alongside records of violence and elimination of rivals. This family seemed particularly interested in locating something called the Savona cipher. "The cipher isn't a thing, it's a person," Franco revealed when Claire questioned him about the reference. "It's what they called the women in your family who could translate the untranslatable. And Victor Barone believes whoever controls the last Savona controls the future of all 5 families." Claire's apartment was ransacked again, this time more thoroughly, the floorboards ripped up and walls damaged. "They're looking for something specific," Max reported, showing her photographs of the destruction. "Something they believe your grandmother left behind." The medallion grew warm against Claire's skin as she worked through a particularly difficult passage, the ancient words seeming to shift and change until she realized it was a key to decoding the most heavily encrypted sections. Her grandmother had trained her for this role without her knowledge. One night, Claire discovered a series of letters exchanged between her grandmother and Franco's father, revealing a love affair that had continued in secret for decades. These weren't just business partners. Their families had been bound by deeper ties of loyalty and love. The final ledger contained a map of underground tunnels connecting strategic locations throughout the city, including several buildings owned by the Valenti family. These tunnels had been used during Prohibition and still served as emergency escape routes for those in power. Claire noticed subtle changes in the translation of her own name across different documents, sometimes Bennett, sometimes Savona, and in the oldest texts, something else entirely. "Guardiani, the Guardians," she whispered, the title resonating with something primal in her blood. Franco arrived unexpectedly one night, his usual composed demeanor replaced with urgent tension. "Victor Barone has called a meeting of all 5 families," he announced, pacing the room. "He claims to have discovered who you really are and is demanding your presence." The translation of the final section revealed the shocking truth. The Savona women weren't just translators. They were keepers of a code that maintained balance between the families. Each generation had a unique cipher embedded in their DNA, accessible only through their blood and voice. As Claire finished the final translation, the pieces fell into place with terrible clarity. Her grandmother hadn't just been a translator. She had been the arbiter of power, the neutral party whose word was law, and now that responsibility had passed to her. The meeting of the 5 families was set for 3 days hence at a neutral location, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, during a private fundraising gala. "You'll be surrounded by New York's elite," Franco explained, "which means witnesses, cameras, and a measure of safety even Victor Barone won't risk breaching." Claire stood before the mirror, in a midnight blue gown that transformed her from waitress to heiress, the Savona medallion gleaming at her throat. Max entered the room, his usual security attire replaced by an impeccable tuxedo, his eyes widening slightly at her transformation. "Tonight, I'm not just your security," Max said, his voice softening as he offered his arm. "I'm your official escort, which means I don't leave your side for a moment, not even to dance with another." Franco had arranged for Claire to arrive separately from him, to avoid drawing immediate connections, her invitation identifying her as a donor from a Swiss cultural foundation. The deception would buy precious time before Victor Baron realized who she was. The museum's grand hall sparkled with chandeliers and jewels as New York's wealthiest citizens mingled among ancient artifacts, unknowingly surrounding themselves with representatives from the 5 most powerful criminal families in the city. Claire felt their eyes tracking her movements as she entered on Max's arm. The redhead near the Greek statues is Sophia Baron, Victor's daughter and his most trusted lieutenant. Max murmured against her ear, appearing to whisper sweet nothings while actually identifying potential threats. The older gentleman by the champagne is Luis Montega of the Montega family, allied with the Baroness. Claire navigated the crowd with newfound confidence, years of serving the wealthy giving her insight into their behaviors and weaknesses. She spotted Franco across the room, engaged in conversation with a stern-faced man she recognized from the ledger photographs as Victor Baron himself. The first hour passed in a carefully choreographed dance of social niceties and strategic positioning, Max never more than a step away as Claire charmed donors and deflected curious questions. The weight of the medallion against her skin seemed to grow heavier with each passing minute. Victor Baron made his move during the second hour, approaching Claire directly, while she examined a Renaissance painting depicting a falconer. "The Savona women always did appreciate fine art," he said softly, his cultured voice at odds with the predatory gleam in his eyes. "I understand you've been looking for me, Mr. Baron," Claire replied evenly, grateful for Max's solid presence beside her. "Though ransacking an old woman's apartment seems beneath someone of your standing." Victor's smile never wavered as he signaled to his associates positioned around the room. "Your grandmother denied me what was rightfully mine for decades, and now you'll correct that oversight by coming with me for a private discussion about family obligations." Max stepped forward, his posture shifting subtly to place himself between Claire and Victor. "Ms. Bennett has prior commitments this evening as a guest of Mr. Valenti, who would consider any interference with her schedule a personal affront." The tension between the men was palpable, as security teams from both families began moving into position throughout the gallery. Ordinary guests remained oblivious to the dangerous currents flowing beneath their pleasant evening of culture and philanthropy. Claire felt rather than saw Franco approaching from behind, completing a triangle of power with herself at the center. "This isn't the time or place for family discussions, Victor," Franco stated calmly, though his eyes conveyed deadly seriousness. "The Savona woman doesn't belong to you, Valenti," Victor hissed, dropping all pretense of civility. "Her grandmother was pledged to my family before your father stole her away, breaking the balance that has kept peace for generations." The revelation struck Claire like a physical blow. This wasn't just about ledgers or translations. This was about an ancient betrayal that had set 3 families on a collision course with her at the center. Max's hand pressed reassuringly against the small of her back, steadying her. The confrontation at the gala ended in an uneasy standoff, with Claire returning to the safe house under doubled security. "We need to move you immediately," Franco insisted, his usual composure shaken by how close Victor had come to making a scene that would have exposed them all. Dawn found Claire and Max boarding Franco's private jet, bound for northern Italy, the homeland she had fled as a child. "Your grandmother left something there," Franco explained, handing her a worn leather journal. "Something that proves your rightful position among the families." The small coastal village of Portofino appeared unchanged by time, its colorful buildings nestled against the Mediterranean exactly as in Claire's fragmented memories. An elderly man waited on the dock, his weathered face breaking into a smile of recognition as they disembarked. "Salvatore was your grandmother's cousin and the caretaker of the Savona family villa," Franco explained, as they followed the old man through narrow cobblestone streets. "He's the only person who knows what your grandmother hid here before fleeing with you to America." The villa stood on a cliff overlooking the sea, its stone walls weathered by centuries of salt air and Mediterranean sun. Claire felt a profound sense of homecoming as she crossed the threshold, memories surfacing like bubbles in water, running through these halls as a child. Her mother's laugh, her father's strong hands lifting her high. "Your parents didn't die in an accident as your grandmother told you," Salvatore revealed in heavily accented English, leading them to a private study lined with ancient books. They were executed by Victor's father when they refused to hand you over as a child, the next Savona cipher. Claire's hands trembled as Salvatore unlocked a hidden compartment behind a painting of a falcon, removing a metal box covered in the same intricate patterns as her medallion. Your mother recorded everything in the days before her death, knowing what was coming. Inside the box lay a leather-bound journal and a recorded message on an old cassette tape, labeled simply, "For my daughter, when she returns." Max quietly found a player, while Claire opened the journal to find her mother's elegant handwriting filling pages with secrets long buried. The journal revealed the true nature of the Savona women, not just translators, but genetically gifted interpreters of truth, able to discern lies and intentions through subtle shifts in language and expression. This gift made them valuable beyond measure, as neutral arbiters between the families. "The families created a pact centuries ago," Claire read aloud, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "A Savona woman would serve as the guardian, using her gifts to maintain balance and prevent all-out war between rival factions, with the Valenti family as their sworn protectors." Her mother's recorded voice filled the room, triggering a flood of emotions and memories Claire had suppressed for decades. "My beloved daughter, if you're hearing this, you've discovered your heritage and the gift that flows in your blood, the ability to hear truth in lies and find meaning in chaos." The recording explained how the balance had been disrupted when Franco's father and Claire's grandmother fell in love, breaking the arranged marriage to the Barone family that would have united two powerful houses. Their forbidden romance had set off a chain of betrayals and vengeance that continued to the present day. Victor Barone believes the Savona cipher, the genetic key to our family's gift, belongs to him by right of the broken engagement, her mother's voice continued. "What he doesn't know is that each generation's cipher manifests differently, and yours is the strongest our family has ever produced." Claire discovered documentation proving her grandmother had legally established her as the sole heir to the Savona legacy, including properties, bank accounts, and most importantly, the position as neutral arbiter between the 5 families. This inheritance gave her leverage even Victor couldn't ignore. The final pages of the journal contained detailed instructions for a ritual that would formally establish Claire as the guardian, requiring the presence and acknowledgement of all 5 families. "Only when the circle is complete can the new guardian take her rightful place," her mother had written, "and restore the balance that protects us all from mutual destruction." The return to New York brought a new sense of purpose as Claire prepared for the gathering that would formally establish her as the guardian. Franco arranged for the ceremony to take place during his annual charity gala, an event prestigious enough to ensure attendance from all 5 families without arousing suspicion. Claire spent the days leading up to the gala studying her mother's journal, practicing the ancient ritual phrases, and strengthening her unique abilities. With each passing hour, her sensitivity to linguistic nuances heightened, until she could detect the slightest shift in tone that indicated deception. The Valenti estate, transformed into a fortress of subtle security measures, disguised as elegant party preparations. Max coordinated with Franco's security team, establishing multiple evacuation routes and contingency plans should Victor attempt to disrupt the proceedings. Claire's gown for the ceremony was custom designed to conceal the Savona medallion against her heart, while incorporating elements of the family crest in delicate beadwork across the bodice. The sapphire blue fabric complemented the falcon signet ring her mother had left in the villa, now resting on her right hand. The evening of the gala arrived with a tension that hung in the air like electricity before a storm. Claire stood at Franco's side as they greeted New York's elite, her newly refined abilities allowing her to read the unspoken intentions behind every smile and handshake. "Victor just arrived with his entire family," Max murmured, appearing at her side with 2 champagne flutes as cover for their conversation. "He's brought his daughter Sophia and his son Carlo, which suggests he's taking this ceremony seriously despite his objections." The Montega family patriarch approached next, flanked by his twin sons whose reputation for brutal efficiency was well documented in the ledgers Claire had translated. Behind them came the Roselli and Dmitri families, completing the circle of power that had controlled the city's underworld for generations. As midnight approached, Franco skillfully directed the 5 family heads and Claire toward the estate's hidden underground chamber, a room older than the mansion itself, with ancient symbols etched into stone walls. The families arranged themselves in a circle around a central altar bearing the 5 family crests. "We gather to witness the ascension of the new guardian," Franco announced formally, his voice echoing in the chamber. Claire Savona comes before us to claim her birthright as arbiter and peacekeeper among our houses, as established by the covenant of our ancestors. Victor's objection came swiftly, his voice cutting through the ceremonial atmosphere. This woman abandoned her responsibilities for 20 years while living as an American waitress. She knows nothing of our ways, or the delicate balance between our interests. Claire stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the gathering in the ancient dialect that only those with family blood could truly understand. I did not abandon my birthright. It was protected until I was ready to bear its weight, as has been our custom for centuries. The medallion at Claire's throat began to glow with a soft golden light as she placed her mother's journal on the altar. I stand before you with the knowledge of all 5 families in my mind, their secrets in my hands, and the truth in my voice. I challenge any who would question my right to guardianship. Victor's face darkened with rage as he motioned to his children, their hands moving toward concealed weapons. The Savona line was promised to the Barones generations ago. This ceremony is nothing but a Valenti power grab disguised as tradition. Before anyone could move, a commotion erupted from above as the sound of gunfire and breaking glass shattered the ceremonial atmosphere. Max's phone buzzed with security alerts as he drew his weapon, positioning himself between Claire and the chamber's entrance. The mansion is under attack, Franco announced grimly, triggering hidden mechanisms that sealed the underground chamber from intruders. Someone has betrayed our gathering to outside forces. Security monitors revealed masked gunmen systematically moving through the mansion, their tactical precision suggesting professional mercenaries rather than rival family soldiers. The party guests had been evacuated, but the 6 most powerful criminal leaders in New York were now trapped underground with limited options. "This is your doing, Valenti," Victor accused, his face contorted with fury as he backed against the wall. "You plan to eliminate all rivals during this farce of a ceremony." Claire felt the medallion grow warmer against her skin as anger flashed through the chamber. Decades of mistrust, threatening to erupt into violence despite the external threat. "Silence," she commanded, her voice carrying an authority that startled even herself. The room fell quiet as Claire closed her eyes, focusing on the sounds filtering through the security system, distinguishing languages and accents within the attackers' communications. "These aren't Valenti men," she announced with absolute certainty. "They're speaking Russian and referencing orders from someone called the Surgeon." Recognition flashed across multiple faces as Carlo Barone stepped forward, his expression grave. "The Surgeon is Yuri Petrov, head of the Russian Bratva, trying to expand into our territories. He must have learned about our gathering tonight and seized the opportunity." "We have 2 choices," Claire stated, assuming her role as guardian without ceremony or formal recognition. "We fight each other while enemies take everything we've built, or we stand together and demonstrate why the 5 families have controlled this city for generations." The ancient tunnel system detailed in the ledgers offered their best chance of escape, with multiple exit points across the city. Franco quickly produced a modern tablet displaying the mapped routes overlaid with current city infrastructure, identifying viable pathways. "We'll need to split into groups," Max suggested, his tactical experience evident as he outlined a strategy. "Different exit points to minimize risk, with protection for each family head, and coordinated reassembly at a secure location." Claire watched Victor's face carefully as the plans formed, her heightened senses detecting his internal struggle between long-held grudges and immediate survival. "The Barone family will cooperate for now," he finally declared, though his eyes promised this alliance was temporary. The journey through the tunnels required navigating centuries-old passages partially collapsed or flooded with groundwater. Claire found herself paired with Max, and surprisingly, Sophia Barone, the women forming an uneasy alliance as they waded through knee-deep water beneath the city streets. "My father has hated the Valentis for as long as I can remember," Sophia confessed, as they paused at a junction, her designer gown ruined by the underground journey. "But even he admits the 5 families need a neutral guardian. He just believes that right belongs to our family. The guardian isn't chosen by right or inheritance alone," Claire explained, repeating words from her mother's journal as if she'd always known them. "Each generation, the gift manifests in one woman with the strength to bear the burden of neutrality, while seeing the truth in all things." A sudden explosion rocked the tunnel behind them, sending debris and water cascading toward their position. Max reacted instantly, pushing both women forward as the ceiling began to collapse, separating them from the rest of their escape party. Their altered route forced them to surface through an abandoned subway maintenance access, emerging blocks away from their planned extraction point. The night air carried the distant wail of sirens as emergency services responded to the attack on the Valenti estate. Sophia removed her designer heels, now ruined by the tunnel water, her aristocratic facade crumbling as she revealed a tactical mindset Claire hadn't expected. "My father insisted all his children learn to navigate the city blindfolded," she explained, orienting herself by the distant landmarks glowing against the night sky. A black, unmarked helicopter swept low over the buildings, its searchlight cutting through the darkness as Petrov's men coordinated their hunt from above. Max pulled them beneath a construction tarp, his body tense as he calculated their diminishing options. The weight of protecting not just Claire, but the daughter of their greatest rival, adding complexity to his mission. The unexpected alliance between Claire and Sophia created a strange symmetry. Two women raised for entirely different purposes, now dependent on each other's unique skills to survive the night. Where Claire could read intentions and truth, Sophia possessed generations of strategic knowledge about the city's criminal landscape that no translation could provide. Claire spotted the sleek black cars of the Petrov organization patrolling nearby streets, their drivers scanning alleyways and side streets with military precision. "They're hunting us systematically," she whispered, pulling Sophia behind a dumpster as headlights swept past their position. Dawn broke over the city as Claire, Max, and Sophia finally reached the secondary safe house, a seemingly abandoned warehouse, converted into a fortified command center. The other family heads had arrived hours earlier, tension and exhaustion evident on their faces as they argued over next steps. "The Russians hit all our primary locations simultaneously," Franco reported grimly, displaying security footage on multiple screens. "They knew exactly where to strike and when we'd be vulnerable. This was coordinated with inside knowledge." Claire moved to the center of the room, her tattered gown and disheveled appearance doing nothing to diminish the authority she now carried. "Someone in this room betrayed the gathering to Petrov," she stated, her gaze moving methodically from face to face. Her enhanced abilities allowed her to detect the microscopic changes in expression, pulse, and breathing that betrayed deception. Carlo Baroni's right hand twitched slightly when her gaze fell upon him, his collar suddenly too tight against his neck. "It was you," Claire said quietly, addressing Victor's son directly. "You made a side deal with the Russians, believing they would eliminate your rivals while preserving your family's position." Carlo's hand moved toward his weapon, but Max was faster, disarming him with practiced efficiency, while security personnel from all 5 families moved to contain the situation. Victor's face reflected shock followed swiftly by a cold rage directed at his own flesh and blood. "You would betray not just our allies, but your own family?" Victor demanded, stepping toward his son with murderous intent, before Claire's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "No blood will be shed here," she commanded, her role as guardian no longer questioned by anyone present. "Carlo Baroni will stand trial before representatives of all 5 families, judged according to our laws and traditions. The ancient ritual for judging betrayal required 5 witnesses, 1 from each family, to observe as the accused spoke directly to the guardian. Claire's enhanced abilities would detect every nuance of truth or deception, every hidden motivation revealed in the subtle shifts of language that only a Savona could perceive. Carlo's trial took place in the oldest section of the underground network, a chamber dating back to Prohibition era, with 5 stone chairs arranged in a semicircle before a raised platform. The Savona medallion pulsed against Claire's skin as Carlo recounted his actions, revealing not just personal ambition, but genuine belief that the traditional family structure was failing against modern threats. The verdict Claire delivered surprised everyone. Carlo would not face execution as tradition demanded, but would instead serve the 5 families by infiltrating Petrov's organization as their informant, his betrayal becoming the very tool of their collective survival. "The Guardian seeks balance, not vengeance," she declared, establishing a new precedent that acknowledged both justice and pragmatic necessity. The attempted betrayal had an unexpected effect, uniting the previously fractious families against a common external threat while solidifying Claire's position as guardian. Even Victor Baron nodded grudging acceptance of her authority in this matter. "The Russians believe us weakened and divided," Franco observed, studying the surveillance footage of Petrov's operations throughout the city. "They expect us to turn on each other, while they seize our territories one by one." Claire moved to a large table at the center of the room, unfolding a map of New York marked with the territories and businesses controlled by each family. "Then we show them the consequence of underestimating the 5 families and their guardian," she declared, outlining a counter-strategy. The next 48 hours transformed the city's underworld as the five families executed a coordinated response under Claire's guidance. Their combined resources and intelligence networks identified Petrov's key operations and vulnerabilities with surgical precision. Rather than responding with outright violence that would draw law enforcement attention, Claire orchestrated a sophisticated campaign targeting the Russians' financial infrastructure, supply chains, and political protections. Each family contributed their specialized skills to the effort. The Valenti family's banking connections froze Petrov's assets, while the Montega family's Port Authority influence blocked their shipments. The Roselli family leveraged media contacts to expose Russian connections to corrupt officials, and the Dmitry family's technology experts dismantled their communications. Victor Barone personally led the team that captured Yuri Petrov at his penthouse suite, delivering him to a neutral location where Claire waited to negotiate terms. "You miscalculated," she informed the Russian calmly. "The five families may have their differences, but they are bound by traditions stronger than your ambitions." The restoration of order culminated in a formal ceremony at the historic Savona Villa in Italy, where Claire officially assumed her role as guardian before representatives of all five families. The ancient ritual, unchanged for centuries, bound the families to respect her neutrality and judgment in matters of dispute. Max stood at her side throughout the ceremony, his role evolving from protector to partner, as their shared experiences forged a bond beyond professional obligation. Franco watched with approval as Claire took her place at the head of the gathering, her mother's journal and medallion completing the circle broken decades ago. "The strength of the five families lies not in their individual power," Claire addressed the gathering, "but in the balance maintained between them, with the guardian ensuring that no single interest threatens the whole." Victor Barone approached after the ceremony, his customary arrogance tempered by recent events. "My family recognizes your claim," he conceded with formal dignity. "The Savona gift is evident in you, perhaps more strongly than in generations past." Claire's return to New York marked the beginning of a new era for the five families, with the Guardian's office established in a neutral building owned jointly by all factions. Her days of serving tables were replaced by mediating disputes, reviewing business proposals, and maintaining the delicate balance of power that kept the peace. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video, as your support is crucial for me to continue creating content here.